Insurance premiums are paid. I'm ready. I'm ready. Got my medical insurance card on me.
What's going on? You're watching USG Hot Takes. I'm your host, A.T. Bianco, and I'm very excited to announce today's guest. It's the Interim President of Stony Brook University, Dr. Michael Bernstein. Shake your hand right across the table. Thanks for being here with us today. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
So, to start, before we start, tell us your experience with hot foods and whether or not you like them or you don't like them.
I do like spicy foods, although
Okay.
I understand this may be an order of magnitude different
Yes.
than what I'm used to. But I enjoy spicy cuisine, Mexican food, Asian food, so I've enjoyed that in the past. I hope I'll enjoy it today.
All right. So, are you ready to get into the first
I
sauce?
am. I
Okay.
am.
So, the first sauce is called the Hot One sauce.
Okay.
What we're going to do, we're going to clink wings. Cheers, and we'll get into the first question, all right?
Okay,
So,
cheers.
to you. Toss it right on in here. Not that bad. Got a little sweet taste to it, So we'll get right into it. I want to do some time travel. Backtrack to Michael Bernstein as a college student, as a young professional.
It's a long time ago.
If you can go back that far. What was your personal experience like, and how has that shaped the man you are today?
My personal experience in college itself.
In college and going right into the work world even.
Yeah. So, college was a pretty intense experience for me. I mean, I found college challenging. I had to work pretty hard, and I enjoyed college, generally speaking. And I think when I reflect back on my college years and initially getting to graduate school and starting work, it was all about mentors. I had good people in my life, both teachers and professional guides, and also in my family, who gave me great advice and were always there for me when I had questions. I mean, I reflect on that a lot to this day.
Where did you attend undergrad?
I was an undergraduate at Yale.
Okay.
I graduated. I went overseas for a year. I actually studied at the University of Cambridge for a year in England. Great experience. It was my first opportunity to travel.
Okay. So both undergrad and graduate school at Yale. What was your area of study and expertise?
So I was an economics major.
Okay.
I was an undergrad. I minored in history. And then when I went on to graduate school, I actually chose economics as my graduate school field, although I remained very interested in history and actually did a lot of work in economic history. And that's, most of my economic history work has been focused on the 20th century. Starting in graduate school, I was particularly interested to study the Great Depression of the 1930s. It's obviously a major episode in world history, but also it was the period in which my parents grew up. My parents were youngsters when the Great Depression started, so I heard a lot about it growing up and obviously framed their lives, and it led to World War II, which also framed their lives. So in certain ways, a lot of my research, and it's the research on the 1930s that matters to me the most in many respects, it was also a way of connecting with my parents in some respects.
That's really interesting to hear. What kind of stories, I guess, did you hear from your parents that resonated with you?
Well, first, anyone who lived through the 1930s, and certainly my parents, who at the time were, 10 years old in the worst years of the Depression, what framed their memories was the hardship around them. My grandfathers were both school teachers. My mother's father and my father's father, they were both high school teachers in New York City, so they were actually fortunate because they kept their jobs.
Okay.
But everyone around them was losing their jobs, and I think that's what affected my parents profoundly. Their friends, were in households that were suddenly quite challenged and compromised by breadwinners out of work, and there was a lot of hardship. Homelessness, people living in the streets, people either begging for money or taking up odd jobs just to pick up some money. And then, of course, World War II started. So for my father in particular, World War II interrupted college. he went into the Navy. I mean, that happened to an entire generation, obviously. So that's another impact, I think, on that generation of not taking anything for granted and understanding that things can change very quickly. Taking stock of opportunities. You know, you're going to have the opportunity to go to college, you better make the best of it. You're going to have the opportunity to, you know, train for a career, make the best of it. But all very positive. I don't mean to say that it was all, you know, negative. You know, my grandfathers were both, you know, very loving men who were optimists, basically, and were eager, obviously, to see their children, my father and mother, flourish, and their grandchildren. I was very fortunate in that regard.
So, cheers.
Cheers.
All right,
Let's
one
try
bite.
this one, yeah.
It's unique. It's kind of got a little like tangy taste
Yeah, the
to
little
it,
blueberry
you know?
taste.
Yeah,
That is unique. Yeah.
not bad.
Yeah.
You joined Stony Brook back in 2016.
Correct.
And you were the provost and senior vice president for academic affairs. What did you learn in that role these past 3 years?
Great question. I learned, first of all, about the uniqueness of this institution. I mean, it's a very special place, a very, you know, high-toned, high-performing, excellent research university that at the same time serves an incredibly diverse student population that performs at a very high level, that graduates at very high rates, that succeeds in, you know, very powerful ways. You can't say that about a lot of leading research universities in this country. So that I was struck by that right away. Obviously, at our university, we have our disputes about many things. I've been involved in those disputes over the years. Sometimes those arguments can get pretty intense. But when you talk about the students here and their accomplishments, and when you talk about the faculty and their research or their work, people sort of come together around that. You know, it's like you're in a room with lots of voices, and suddenly when you say, but what about the students?
Right.
What about the faculty? Everybody sort of gets quiet and says, yeah.
Oh, that's why we're here.
Yeah,
That
that's
kind of-
and everybody sort of coheres around that. That's a powerful thing. The other lesson I learned in the provost's office, and that I carry with me always, you know, one of the big responsibilities of the provost and the provost team is to manage resources, manage budgets in all the colleges and schools. That's a complicated task. There are a lot of people in the provost's office who work really, really hard at doing that. They taught me a lot about how we sort of get on top of our budgets, understand them, manage them, and use them to maximum effect. So those are lessons I take close to heart.
Being that you have an economics background, how has that helped you, I guess, learn to manage budgets and work with different people at this university regarding that topic?
I think it's helped a lot. You know, if my former economics teachers were around, I would thank them and tell them that, you know, one of the things you learn about in economics is the powerful concept of opportunity cost. You know, those of you who've studied economics remember this. So the concept of opportunity cost is that, you know, when you do something, there's also an implicit cost because you're not doing something else. You know, you're focusing resources and effort here, which means you're not doing it over here.
Okay.
That's an opportunity cost. You've chosen to do this, so there's an opportunity you've chosen not to pursue. And that's a challenging concept often in academic environments, because the instinct in academic environments is to try to do everything. You know, let's do this. No, if we choose this, we can't do that. If we choose that, we can't do the other.
Right.
And that's a powerful concept that I think frames good decisions, because you have to set priorities and say, well, we're going to do this and not that.
So
obviously.
sitting here listening to your definition of opportunity cost rings a bell. I heard from a little birdie that you used to teach at Tulane University.
Yes.
So I went online looking for Rate My Professor comments from when you taught economics at Tulane University, and I saw a comment on Rate My Professors, and it said, "Professor Bernstein is awesome. He really knows how to make supply and demand sound sexy." So I don't know if that rings a bell or if you've ever seen it. What have you done in terms of your teaching talent to, I guess, make it, like, how do you make that sound sexy?
How do you make that sexy? Well, I'm laughing in part because you remind me, I had a colleague at Tulane, a very a very fine psychologist, professor of psychology, Michael Cunningham, who, his rate my professor comments were always off the charts positive. But he would also always get the red chili pepper.
Oh, right. Yeah.
He was very popular with students, and he always used to say to me, he says, I don't care what the comments are, I just want my red chili pepper. In my experience, students obviously, want to be excited about material that they're learning in the classroom, and some subjects may or be more or less interesting to particular students at particular points in time. But I think students respond to instructors who are passionate about their subjects. And also, students want to know that you care about their learning. So if you can convey that to students, that you're interested in their learning, you're concerned that they learn. One of the key issues there is being able to sense your audience. How are they doing? Are they bored? Are they happy? Are they sad? What's going on out there? That can be hard to do, but if you can respond to that and adjust, gee, this isn't getting through, or I'm leaving them, they're totally bored by this, then you can adjust and be more effective in the classroom. So I think that's always animated my teaching, because that's what I remember from my experience in the classroom. Right? The teachers I liked the most were the ones who were lifting me up with their own spirit and conveying to me their intense interest in what they were doing. Even though I, in the end, might say, well, this was a great course in X, but I'm not going to pursue this anymore. Right.
Were there any, tips that you've taught yourself to avoid the crickets chirping in the background of your student audience?
I don't know if it's tricks. I mean, I think partly it's about being sensitive to your audience, sort of looking them in the eye and say, what's going on here? Are their eyes open? That's a good starter. Right? If they're closed, that's a sign. That's a sign. Maybe things aren't working out too well. But also, oftentimes just take a moment and pause and say, does that make sense? Do you have any questions? Do you want to continue on this topic or not? What's going on out there?
Right.
Have patience with silence. That can be terrifying in front of a group. You ask a question, can anyone tell me X? And nobody's raising their hands. The instinct is to try and fill that void with an answer.
Because of an awkward nature,
It feels awkward, right? But my mentor, this particular mentor, said, just sit, just wait. 30 seconds may seem like an hour to you, but it's only 30 seconds. Just wait. And things will happen. Things will happen. It was great advice.
You ready to get to the third sauce?
All right, let's try the third one.
All right, this one is, you want to read this one for us?
Okay, this is Louisiana style micro batch. It says it's batch 218. Pain is good.
Yeah. This one's got a little bit of a sting to it. A little bit of a bite to it.
No fooling around.
Yeah, no, not at all. This is straight business over here. So we're going to get to the next question. In the interim president role, so this is the big question of the day, what is one thing that you'd want students to know about you personally that maybe, the regular everyday student doesn't know about you?
Well, maybe a couple of things, but I think the first thing that comes to mind, I am the father of 2 daughters. I have 2 grown daughters, Eleanor and Claire, who mean so much to me. They're wonderful human beings. Eleanor, my older daughter, is a director of marketing for a co-working firm in Los Angeles.
Okay.
And my younger daughter, Claire, aspires to be a playwright.
Wow.
She works in the independent theater scene in Chicago, which also is to say she has a number of waitressing jobs and other gigs to try and make ends meet. But she's working on play scripts. She's thinking about possibly going back to school to get a Master of Fine Arts in playwriting. She's thinking about that. But they're special people. They're good people. So that would be at the top of my list. Most students don't know that about me just because they don't know that about an interim president. Maybe the other thing I could share with students is many years ago, when I was a student, I had experience working as an emergency medical technician trainee with an ambulance company in Hartford, Connecticut. Actually, that experience may have done more to convince me not to go to medical school than any other experience I ever had. I have experience as a dinner cook trainee at a big hotel in Boston. It was actually a great job, and obviously I ate very well while I was training, but I didn't pursue a culinary career. And finally, I suppose the other thing I'd share with students, I've always had ever since I was a little boy, I've always had a fascination with airplanes and things aviation. And years and years ago, I thought, gee, I'd like to learn how to fly. I never had the time or the money to stick with it and get a pilot's license, but I've soloed an airplane 3 times in the course of my training.
Fun fact right there.
So that's cool. You know, a little single-engine Cessna, flying around the airport, but I got to do that. So
that's really interesting.
Those are things I like to share with students when they ask.
So backtracking to the little, odds and ends jobs that you've had, and you being interim president now and holding, a high position at this university and, other universities as well. Backtracking to those odds and ends jobs, how has that taught you to, say, treat the janitor with the same respect that you treat with the CEO?
Great question. I think when, through your work experience, you learn a great deal about interacting with others and, where you fit in a large organization like, say, a hotel or an ambulance company in my case. Any of us who have the privilege of serving have to understand that there would be no leadership position if it weren't for all the other people that are running the organization. And the analogy I often use is the organization's like a ship at sea. I may have the privilege of standing on the bridge, but it's all those people on the decks below who are running that ship. If they're not there, that ship isn't going anywhere.
It's going to go under.
It literally won't go anywhere. I try to hold on to those lessons in all the work I do in my current responsibilities and in the past responsibilities I have. Leadership is about serving others. It's not about having others serve you.
That was a quote-worthy quote. I want to see that in the newspapers somewhere, so I like that one. So you want to read it for us?
All right.
Da
bomb. Beyond insanity, it says.
Ding, ding, ding.
Yeah, it's a nice. It's got the radioactivity symbol on
and
it.
When you take a bite, you'll probably think it's radioactive.
Okay.
All right, so we're gonna take one bite, clink wings.
Okay.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Whew. Yeah, that one's
Whoa.
It's gross. You might want to wipe your lips too. Got a lot of sauce on that.
Yep.
So,
Whoa.
right into the question now. Let's talk about your Beyond the Expected podcast. That's the name of it, correct? All right. So, Deanie, who is the most low-profile person on this campus, has been producing it for you. So, shout out to her. She allows us to use the studio.
Right.
And she showed me some episodes, and including the one that you did with the Hawkeye Pierce of MASH. I'm a little bit of an old soul. I used to watch that show with my grandfather. Alan Alda, for those who don't know. What's the overall premise of that podcast, and what was that experience like interviewing Alan Alda?
Well, we have to back up here. I didn't do the interview with Alan Alda.
Oh.
Alan Ingalls did the interview with Alan Alda because I wasn't available.
Okay.
But I can get at your question because I've interacted with Alan Alda a lot. I couldn't do the interview with Alan that day. I was somewhere. I don't know where.
You're busy saving the world. Right?
I was traveling somewhere. Alan's extraordinary. Alan Alda is extraordinary. He's warm. He's connected. He's smart. And he is passionate about communicating science. How do we find ways to more effectively communicate about science and what scientists do? Because he feels so much misunderstanding today is about people being confused about science. And as you know, he supports the Alan Alda Center for Communicating Science here at Stony Brook, and he's a passionate patron of that mission. And I think he's making a real difference in that regard. I think I'm going to grab one of these celery sticks.
Go right ahead.
Because my mouth's on fire.
You need some blue cheese for that
Let's see if that works.
All right, that'll help a little bit. Cool. cool off the palate.
Woo!
Talking back, on the podcast topic. What made you so interested in starting a podcast, and I guess what's the overall premise of it?
Nicholas Scabetta, who's the vice president for marketing and communications at the university, first raised this with me. And we thought it would be a great opportunity to sort of drill in and highlight some of the extraordinary work a lot of our faculty are doing, or people like Alan who are, patrons of very special endeavors on the campus. And, one of the best things about serving as a dean or as a provost, or now I'm serving as interim president at the university, is you get to talk to people about their work. I mean, if I go up to somebody and ask them about their work, they're usually willing to talk to me about it.
Right.
And it's exciting to hear what they're working on. People are doing extraordinary things around here.
Is there a favorite episode that you've had so far? Have you done anything like this before? Have you interviewed people and been an on-camera personality?
I have done interviews. I've never done podcasts before. It's the first time I've had experience with podcasts, which they're fun because they're focused, they're short, they're to the point. We've done about 3 or 4. I've done about 3 or 4 of them so far. I think we've had a podcast that's focused on the work of some of our faculty on vaccine technology and vaccine policy, because obviously there's a lot of opposition to vaccines. We have some colleagues who are working with the Shinnecock Nation and some other indigenous communities to try and increase their participation in the census. And then I also had an opportunity to interview some of our leading faculty who are working with our stroke units. I don't know if you've heard about this. We have Stony Brook Medicine right now has 2 special ambulances that are outfitted specifically to deal with stroke patients, to be able to intervene immediately when they pick them up. To clear these blockages. A stroke is a blood clot that's interfering with blood flow. These are mobile units. Somebody calls and says, I think someone in my home is having a stroke. We get this unit out there. They get this person, and then the telemetry is transmitted immediately to the hospital.
Wow.
So there's a team at the hospital looking at the imaging, can give direction to the medical team on the bus.
That's groundbreaking.
Yeah, and it can save lives. I mean, literally saves lives. People who would otherwise be compromised by these strokes even die from these strokes, and they're intervening right on the spot. So that was pretty exciting conversations.
That's really cool to hear everything that you're doing for that podcast. So
it's fun.
Thank you for including that.
I enjoyed doing it.
All right, so you ready to get to this last sauce? It's called Mad Dog 357.
Now, have you had this one before or no?
Oh, I've done all.
You've done all of them.
Yeah,
Okay.
Unfortunately, I have. So cheers to you.
Cheers.
There you go.
Okay.
All right, cheers on that. Oof.
Ooh.
That one's not. Doesn't leave me a happy camper. So I heard you're a Yankees super fan.
I am.
What is your most fond memory as a fan of the Bronx Bombers?
Well,
and just fill us in about your experience.
And I have to tell you a story about that. When I was privileged to receive the offer to become Stony Brook's next provost, I was speaking with Sam Stanley, who was the president at the time. And I told Sam, I said,
he's
listen.
a Hot Takes alum as well.
Yes. Live to tell the tale. I told him, I said, listen, I'm thrilled. I'm all in. I'm ready to commit to you. But I want you to know that the only job I've ever really wanted was to play third base for the New York Yankees. And if they call me, I'm only giving you a week's notice. And Sam laughed and said, okay, understood.
All right.
A week's notice and you're out. I think for me and for many Yankee fans of my vintage, Game 6 of the 1977 World Series. Reggie Jackson.
Mr.
I mean, you weren't even born.
Mr.
October.
There it is. All right.
Reggie hit 3 home runs in that game. 4th inning, the 5th inning, and the 8th inning. The Yankees won the game, won the series.
Were you there?
No.
Okay, but you watched it.
I was watching it on TV. Each of those home runs was hit on the first pitch. 3 pitches, 3 home runs, 3 different pitchers.
Oh, so he didn't know if it was the same ball that was coming to him. Okay.
3 different pitchers, 3 pitches, 3 home runs. But
that's all the more impressive, though.
Yeah, my mouth's on fire here.
Same,
Let me.
same.
I have one other aspect to this memory to share.
Celery break.
Woo! Nose running, mouth on fire.
It stings.
I'm watching this game in a bar in New Haven, Connecticut.
Okay.
The bar was packed. People are raving at this game. Each time Reggie came up in the 4th, 5th, and 8th inning, I was there with my then college roommate. Eddie said each time, I kid you not, he's going to hit a home run. So the first time he hit a home run, we all went wild. I said, that's great,
crazy.
Eddie. The second time, Eddie said, he's going to hit another one. I said, come on. What are you talking about? He hit the second home run. We were like, maybe. When he came up the third time in the 8th inning, I remember, Eddie just looked at me and said, yeah, he's going to hit another one. I said, you're nuts. And he hit the third home run. I mean, it
like,
made
yo,
the hair stand
are
up
you
on the
a
back of my neck.
psychic?
So that's probably my most powerful memory. This
All
season.
right. That's a good answer. Thank you for that. Last question before we end this. So, Michael Bernstein, long day at work. You're the interim president. Had a lot of meetings. You drive home. You sit in the chair. You put your feet up. What are you turning on to watch? What do you do in your spare time to unwind and relax?
Well, I like to go to the movies, but nowadays, of course, with streaming and subscription services, really enjoy, a lot of the Netflix series. Excuse me, I was wrapped up in the Ray Donovan series on Showtime, which Alan Alda was in the last season.
all right.
I would ask Alan questions every
That's
time I
pretty
saw him. Love those series. Now a new season of Homeland has started on Showtime. I'm totally caught up in that. And on Netflix, there's a show called The Kaminsky Method, a hilarious comedy that Alan Arkin and Michael Douglas star in. They've done two seasons. They've done 2 seasons. I watch it. Binge watch that. I like to listen. I'm a rock and roll fan.
Who's your go-to?
So, I'm a traditionalist. I love the Allman Brothers, Bruce Springsteen, Eric Clapton.
The Allman Brothers performed in the Pritchard Gym in, I think, like 71 for Stony Brook concert, so that's pretty cool.
Jimi Hendrix played here back in the 70s.
The year before,
another great hero of mine that I love listening to his music.
Actually, the year before he went and performed at Woodstock, he came in and performed here as well. Janis Joplin, Pink Floyd.
I saw Janis Joplin in the Forest Hills Tennis Stadium when I was a youngster. She was amazing. And she was backed up that night by Johnny Winter, another favorite of mine. He was the backup group for her.
Oh, okay. Was it the Brothers Band that he was a part of? Okay.
And that's, you mentioned earlier, what would I like students to know about? That's another thing. I was at Woodstock. I was there for a day. Yes, it's true.
Get out. You were at Woodstock.
Yeah.
You know what's crazy? I talk to my friends, because I'm from upstate New York, Utica, so that's about an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours from me. So growing up, Woodstock always really resonated with me. Like, wow, like I would really like to meet a person that went there. So from what you're, allowed to tell us, what was your experience like there? And
It was an amazing day. Literally, a group of us drove. I was a youngster. My sister and her boyfriend drove us up there. They were older
How old
than
were
we
you?
were. So I would have been 15, something like that.
You were probably the coolest 15-year-old ever.
And my sister and boyfriend and a couple of other their friends. So we went up in this car. We were heading up Route 17 to get up toward Max Yasgur's farm. And the state, this was the second day of the festival. Wow. The state police at that point had shut down the route. Nobody's going into this town anymore.
Right.
The town was overrun. So they were letting people park their cars off on the shoulder.
Like in the middle of the road kind of thing.
Well, yeah.
Okay.
And you could walk in. And we were miles away. And I remember we walked. There was just a caravan of people.
Is there any one specific act on that second day that you still can hear in your head?
Joe Cocker. I can hear it. I can hear him.
Okay.
I also remember we got caught in the rainstorm. There's this big rainstorm that brews up, and everything just turned into a mud mess. And I remember that. It was a mess. It was a mess, but it's a happy memory, and you feel like you're part of history. My only regret is we literally had purchased tickets, which of course were useless, but we never kept them. I can imagine how valuable they would be today.
I know.
At an antique show,
Right.
But we did not appreciate the significance of that.
Well,
and they just disappeared.
That's pretty cool to hear that
It
you
is
were
cool.
actually there.
I was there.
We appreciate you coming on here and sharing your story here on
you.
Hot Takes. And
Thank you.
You took on the Hot Takes gauntlet like a champ.
Well, I can feel it, but these are amazing sauces. I do, these guys, they're so hot that you can't taste anything.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But
And it's like the combination, I would say, like the 1-2 punch right here.
Yeah, these two at the end.
At that point, your
This
mouth
blueberry
is
one is
not
pretty
bad.
interesting sauce.
Not bad. So thank you so much for
Thanks,
coming on here
AT.
today.
Enjoyed
We really
it.
appreciate it.
Enjoyed the
To our
conversation.
viewers over at home watching this episode of USG Hot Takes with Interim President Dr. Michael Bernstein, thank you for watching. Follow us on Stony Brook USG, Instagram, and Facebook for more episodes, and we appreciate you watching. So thank you. All right.
Thank you.
Some knuckles
great.
right there. Thank you so
That
much.
was
I
great.
appreciate you doing this.
Sure.
You're watching USG Hot Takes, the hottest show on campus.